I'm Ash.
I'm Markie.
And we could edit that, right?
Yeah.
Just like, so it doesn't sound awkward. Welcome to Mindful Thoughts. This is our first episode.
Yay.
One of the things that we talked about was our why and what the reasons are for each of us doing this podcast. For me, I would probably say that I'm someone that has done a lot of work towards being a lot more mindful and self-aware. And I want to share that. I think it's so important for us all to get these things from therapy that not everybody can really have access to, because the truth is that it's money. Everything is money now. Social media is what really helped me. Going on YouTube and finding all of these awesome people like Heinz and Lavender, they're people that I listen to on a regular basis that I would say really like helped me get to a place where I was able to start like learning that there's something more in me than just like this everyday mundane lifestyle. I want people to wake up to themselves and see that there really is more. There really is more to it, a world more to it. And if you start to look inside, you can really start getting peace of mind with so many things. You can start gaining confidence. You can start loving yourself. You could start seeing the world in a new and different way, just in a much more beautiful way, honestly. Really, the whole purpose of this is, I don't know, I always knew there was more, but I never really could quite get in touch with that with myself until I started to reach out and self-inquire. And one of the, I think, best ways that we can do that is through listening to podcasts and through listening to, you know, people on the internet, because that's kind of like our whole world right now. That's what we revolve around. So I think that's my why. I want to help people. I want to touch people. I want people to love themselves. I want people to, you know, have confidence in themselves. I want to be able to just live the life that they want to live and know that that's possible, because that's something that we're doing right now. Like, and it took some listening to get there. But like, I'm hoping that we could be a part of that listening for you guys and for ourselves too.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with so much of what you're saying. It's crazy how much, you know, I can relate to some of the experiences you've had as well. And I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to do this with you. Just because of the things that we've been through and the challenges that we face. I think that we have a lot of experience with difficult times, you know, in life, but we've always done the work of trying to have, you know, introspection, and that's hard. You know, I want people to know that they have a support system with us, you know, because it's hard. It's hard sometimes. You don't know where to start, you know, and
it can be really hard to start.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I feel about you mentioning like listening to podcasts, because it's not very invasive. That's how it's felt for me, you know, for me at least, when it comes to introspection and learning, my like perception shifting. And that's what I want people to get. If anything, is that, you know, we're there for them. We've been there, and we've been through a lot of hard things, and like days do get better, and, you know, we can work on ourselves, and it's okay to do what you want to do for you. Sometimes I feel like for me, like I've been really anxious in the past, and that's like stopped me. So I just want people...
That ties into like what we're going to talk about today.
Everything. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
It really does. Yeah. Before we do get started, we want to thank a couple of people that honestly, this whole entire podcast, everything would not be possible without any of you guys. First of all, Blake.
Thank you.
He's right over there. And he has been such a help with all of the editing and all the video, all the sound, just everything. So thank you to Blake.
He is a one-man band, that guy.
We heart you.
We heart you so hard.
And we also want to thank our friends, Jesus and Eder. Both of you guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
They're the ones that are helping with the art and the animation and everything. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you. And just in awe of your talent. We're blessed, man.
The way that we've decided to go about this podcast is we have really wanted to kind of lay out a couple of big words that have been things that we have worked around a lot and learned about as well. And today's word of the day is going to be vulnerability.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'm scared. I'm scared.
It's too late to back out now.
What is vulnerability? Vulnerability is a word that I think a lot of people don't know, because when I was by the way, if you guys just see me kind of like go away from the microphone at any point, it's and you see Markie tap me, it's just a reminder to be one fist away.
It's like you just feel passionate when you do it.
I do. I do.
I love it.
I actually remember like talking to my therapist about vulnerability, and I had no clue what it really was. And when I learned about it, it opened up this whole new, which is why I think this episode is going to be about this, because it really did open up a whole new world of what is really going on in like my inside world. Because we have a lot, like we can see everything out here, but we don't see a lot of what's going on inside of us, because we're just so used to kind of going day to day with, you know, the same habits that we've learned since we were kids. So since we've just known those habits, sometimes we tend to only be able to live on the outside world because we weren't really taught the things that are going on inside. You don't really understand that until you grow up and decide to go to therapy, and then you can see everything that has actually been going on inside. And let me tell you that it is a whole nother world. Vulnerability is the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. So, and then there's another one that is capable of being physically or emotionally wounded, open to attack or damage, vulnerable to criticism. So these are just some of the definitions, and it can directly connect to this podcast. Because for me, one of the biggest things that has stopped me from doing the things that I've wanted to do, like do a podcast or work on music. I'm a musician and I want to do music professionally. And one thing that has stopped me from it so much is being in front of a camera or listening to my own voice. And there's a reason behind this. There's a reason why I haven't gotten... This is a very big moment right now, because this is one of the biggest things that has been stopping me in life in general. Vulnerability, being afraid to be vulnerable, not only to the world or my friends or my family, but to myself. It's been really hard to just let go and say, you know what, I'm going to just be vulnerable and let the world see me. And one of the heavier things, no pun intended, but it's my weight. I've always...
But
on a real note, I'm glad I could joke around about it, because you know what, there's a lot of people out there that can't.
But you know what? How long did it take to get to that point, man? That's why I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you. I can relate.
Honestly, if I wasn't like ready to truly be vulnerable and put myself out there, I wouldn't. I mean, it's been so long.
Exactly.
That I haven't. And here I am just doing it. And just, I've worked my way here and it hasn't been easy. But, I had to put myself in a place where I could understand what's really going on. Like I said, that inner world, I had to step inside of that inner world. I see it like a door, there's a door to go into the outside world of, my every mundane lifestyle, where every day I'm just doing the same old thing. People are perceiving me. I'm choosing to see what I think their idea of perceiving me is, like I'll be like, oh, that person thinks I'm this way. That person thinks I'm that way. I could make that up for myself in that outside world because, that I'm kind of just blind to everything that's really going on. Like I have this mask on. But when I turn around and open that door that's inside of me and just walk inside, I can really see what's truly going on and just how affected I am by things. And I had to step inside and look around and just be like, damn, like I am kind of just scared for people to truly see me. Like I am scared. And sometimes I feel like I'm not enough. Sometimes I feel like I don't look like everybody else. Growing up, when I go inside of that door, I can see where it all comes from as well. I can see that it comes from a past where my own family told me that I had problems that I needed to work on, that I was getting a little too chubby, and my parents would tell me, eat this salad, but then they would take me to McDonald's right after to eat fries and a McFlurry.
So contradicting.
And it would mess with my mind. That's the recipe that my family or my parents are giving me. But in reality, it's a mixed message, because health should be just something that we do for our own livelihood. Like, it should just be something that we do for our livelihood, not to look any type of way, But I was able to see that it's not me. It's not my true self that is afraid of people seeing this. That doesn't mean that I shouldn't work on myself towards getting healthier, and I do try to actively do that. But honestly, like, I think I have to look inside and see that those are just things that people have put in my head. People have put in my mind that I need to be some sort of way to put on an image. And my dad, he always used to tell me that I had the same nose as him. And he would always just tell me that whenever I grew up, we would get it fixed. He was like, I'm sorry that I gave you this. When you grow up, it's okay, because we're going to be able to fix this for you. We're going to be able to he didn't ever say the word surgery or anything, but he would always definitely make sure to tell me that, don't worry, this won't be a problem in the future for you. So what did that do? It automatically put this image around what I should look like, and that it wasn't normal to look the way that I looked. So I needed to make some modifications to get there. And even to this day, I'm afraid. Like, I'm just like, don't look or you could look everywhere else. Or I've even noticed that sometimes I'll try to hide it in pictures. I'll try to, like, go for a sideways look, or I'll try to, like, go for some other type of look so that, it won't look so, like, prominent. And it's just unfortunate, because, how many people struggle with this every day, like, in their own way. It doesn't just have to be with, like, a facial feature or anything, but just in any way. Going back to the weight thing, I mean, look at our biggest, like, idols out there, they're all perfect. They all look perfect.
Right.
They're tall, they're lean, they're, in my experience, light skin. I've also had a lot of problems with just the color of my skin, again, because of my parents, the way that they kind of made me feel around it as well. And that's a whole nother thing. It can be the color of our skin. It could be our weight. It could be our acne. It could be our nose. Anything. And I don't look like that. So what are they gonna say? I just can hear it just, like, echoing in my head. I always have, what if they don't accept you? What if they don't accept the way that you look, and who you are just isn't enough? That's honestly one of the big things for me, talking about things on a physical level. But I'm glad that I've been able to just sort of really dig within and do the work on myself. A lot of the things that I've done for these physical things is, I don't know, I feel like if I am trying my best every single day to be the best version of myself that I can be, then eventually I'm going to get there. And as long as I have peace of mind with myself and what I'm doing, what I'm eating, what I'm putting in my body.
Yeah, I am so proud of you for opening up. And this episode, I just love that our first episode is about vulnerability, fear of vulnerability, because it is a tough one. It takes a lot to look within yourself and love yourself when you feel that, you don't meet up to a certain standard, these unrealistic, quotas, these just, like, measurements that don't really mean anything, at the end of the day. And I'm just proud of you for doing it with me, and I'm happy we're doing it and just putting ourselves out there, because the thing is, I know that there are just tons of people out there that can relate. I mean, I can relate to the weight thing so much as well. I mean, I remember growing up and kind of being told by, a lot of people that would say kind of things like, you're so pretty, like, if you just lost some weight, though.
Oh
Like,
God,
you're
the
so
classic. If you just
no,
lost something.
the classic line of "you're so pretty," if only, but you know, there's always like a but, and it's just like you are kind of like programmed or conditioned. You know, I know you were, from what you just explained. From, I mean, our minds are so fragile and so moldable and just like sponges when we're younger, and it's like I really look back, especially when I first started going to therapy, when I finally started, you know, learning more about my mental health and trying to, you know, like you said, go into that door that's like with the caution tape on it, kind of like that's what I envision. Like, oh God, like I'm really gonna have to, like, it takes some uncomfortable work and just to kind of deprogram that kind of like just negativity, I feel, you know. And I don't hold anything against those people though either.
Right.
Like, you know, looking back, I mean, because that's another thing is, you know, another part I feel is when you forgive, part of forgiving is even vulnerability, because you're not, you know, you're putting the knife down, so to speak, and you're kind of like, okay, like I'm not gonna have a guard up, I'm not like, I just whatever, because maybe that's how they felt about
Yeah.
themselves. You know, maybe that's what they went through.
Yeah. And now that you said that, it makes me think about something that we heard earlier today that I noted. We were watching a video of Heinz. He is one of my favorite people on YouTube. I think that he's so mindful and just a super aware person. And he said tragedy always shapes humanity. And I think that is so true, because we're so afraid to be vulnerable because we're afraid of tragedy. We're afraid of being hurt. We're afraid that somebody is going to judge us. We're afraid that somebody is going to disappoint us. And all of those things, you know, ultimately they lead to tragedy. And tragedy in our life, no matter what, always sounds scary, because it's just like, oh, you know, you hear the word tragedy in anything, whether you hear it being said or in a song or something, and you're just like, oh God, you know. And but the truth is that it's just like that says, tragedy always shapes humanity. It turns us into who we really are. And if most of the people that I know that are just like really like just well developed, well rounded people are people that have gone through serious tragedy, whether that's been like the death of a family member, someone really dear to them, or somebody that's gone through a lot of drug or alcohol abuse in their life, or people that have experienced any type of awful thing. Those are normally the people that have come so far in life, whether that's mentally, successfully, in so many ways. Like, I think that it is just a part of being human. Tragedy and experiencing hardships is just a part of being human. And even if you aren't somebody that's experienced some crazy tragic event in your life, another person once said that neglect could also not only be through those really intense things, but it could also be the lack of something something. So just not having something in your life, like not having affection, not having somebody that, you know, gave you what you needed, your necessities. It could be even something like that. Not getting validation from your parents when you were younger. You know, if you drew something and you were super proud of it, and you went up to your parent and they were just like, maybe they were good parent, they took care of you, they paid the bills, you know, they put food on the table, but they didn't validate your work, and they didn't give you what you needed as a child, support, so that you can be confident in yourself and move forward in your life with confidence. You know, that really still is a form of neglect. And so we've all experienced in one way or another tragedy. Everybody has experienced this. Nobody has had a perfect life. We've all been through something traumatic and tragic. So I think that that's very necessary in this, and just accepting that really is just a part of being vulnerable. Like, we're gonna have to be vulnerable in life. We're gonna have to be vulnerable. We're gonna have to, one way or another, this is something I told you all week long. I told you multiple times this week, because it was just so crazy to me. Like, the realization of this was just so crazy to me. But I heard somebody else say that no matter what, we're always going to be vulnerable. Always. We're always going to be vulnerable, whether we like it or not. Because you could either be vulnerable and put your heart out on the table and just trust and just open yourself up, or you could totally close yourself up and put all these walls up and just be like, don't talk to me. I don't want anyone coming close. Like, you just put on your armor. But either way, you're being vulnerable because you're showing a certain side of yourself, either the real side or the side of you that's afraid, the side of you that has fear to show yourself or to show people who you are, who you truly are. So it comes off as this like, oh, really closed off person. So people are going to end up just assuming things about you. So, and that probably isn't the case. Like, it's actually not true. It's not who you really are. You aren't this pretentious person. You aren't someone that's just, you might just be a really like loving person and stuff, but people can't see that because you're showing this like false vulnerability.
Right, and it kind of like goes with something that I heard a long time ago too that I think you'll agree with. It's I heard that, when we build walls, we don't only keep other people out, but we keep ourselves inside.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like, people have fear of vulnerability, so they want to protect themselves, from others, from being hurt, from, fear of being hurt, let down, rejected, judged. And it's like that on one hand, I'll be real. I'll be honest. Go ahead and put, the walls up and it will keep people out. But unfortunately, you also start to miss deeper connections and you start to almost kind of, not feel like that comfortability, that safety to kind of let it down and let people in. Because once I feel like I got to that point in my life, like you said earlier, it's like my life really felt enriched. It felt different. I can really tell a time before when I had those walls up. I mean, I wouldn't even be friends with coworkers. I remember being like, no, like, I'm not letting anybody in. Like, I don't want to, like, I had both those swords up against everyone. And I realized I was really, and like, we're scared of ourselves. We're scared of, we don't want, it's almost like for me, at least, I was more afraid of realizing to myself, like, Markie, like, you have anxiety, you have fear of, you are actually fearful of what these people think of you. You are, because what happens is, for me, at least, I felt in being like, being vulnerable makes you feel quote unquote weak. But like, society kind of tells you like, if you're strong, like that means, you don't let anyone in. Like no one needs to know. I kind of like grew up with that, like, kind of like.
That's such a good point.
It is. And that's how it is.
That's such a good point, honestly, because that's the thing. Like it really has. Wow. That's crazy. That's a point that I think, and I wasn't even thinking about, but it's true. I used to have this piercing right here. It's called the bridge piercing, and I remember when I got it, like I had one purpose behind it. It wasn't even really the way that it looked or anything. Like I wasn't like, oh my god, like I want this piercing so bad. It was literally so that I could look tough. I remember I got that because I was like, I want to look badass. I want to scare people. I want to make people know not to with me because I'm a strong ass Aries. I don't want anyone with me. I don't want anybody, like,
yeah.
And this was my whole grand purpose for this piercing. And I got it done, whatever. First of all, I got so many like infections on it. It was crazy. Just honestly, the journey that I had to go through with that piercing was something else.
Oh,
and
man.
I sacrificed that and I made it. You know what? I thought it made me even stronger. I was just like, yeah, I'm dealing with all of this pain and all of this misery and like, but that's just, I started to work on myself more and more after I got that piercing. And the more that I worked on myself, the more that I started to learn to just be more open, be more vulnerable. I started to put down my walls and I started to, come closer to people and to myself, I came to realize, like, man, like, I did this for this purpose, and I didn't even know this at that time. I just thought that, you know, that's what that's what I mean by that door, you know? You, like, open that door and you're like, oh, this is what's really going on, you know? And,
Yep.
you know, I realized I don't even like this piercing. I looked at my face one day in the mirror, and I was just like, why? Like, I didn't even like it. I just looked at it and I was like, I just felt actually like it just didn't feel right as a part of my face. And this isn't to, you know, say that this piercing is not a great piercing, you know, for anyone that, like, has it out there, you know, and they love it. I love that for you. You know, there was a time where I felt very, very good with it. But, you know, in my own personal experience, I was doing it for the wrong reason. And when I took it out, it honestly just felt so good, because I was just like, you know, I don't need that. It was actually kind of difficult to take it out, because as I was taking it out, I was like, man, like, now people are not going to respect me. Now, it wasn't me that was thinking that, but it was just, you know, that fear in me that was just like, oh, now, like, you're not going to have this to make you look this way anymore. And that's just honestly one of my own personal little experiences with like just thinking that not being vulnerable is being tough, because it's not. Like, no. I still wasn't a strong person at that time. You know, underneath that piercing was a person that was really scared of what people thought of her, and really scared of what people were going to say.
Yeah. You know, and I just kind of am sitting here and being reminded a little bit of another example of a time of my life where my fear of vulnerability got in the way of, you know, something. You know, in these examples we just gave, it was kind of not getting close to others, kind of having walls up because of our fear of vulnerability. Well, I think, too, that for a lot of people and myself, I've experienced this, that another thing that fear of vulnerability can really kind of like sabotage is our success just in general. But for me, in this particular example, I was in culinary school like many years ago, and I've always loved cooking so much since I was like 12, and I decided to go to culinary school, and I loved it, but I had a lot of like unmanaged anxiety, I'll say, during that time in my life. I was pretty young, and I hadn't done like any work, you know, at this point in my life. And so we had a class every Thursday when I was in culinary school, and we cooked for the college like cafe, kind of like, and you know, it was really cool. We prepared all the food and did the whole restaurant, you know, kind of thing. And they asked me to be part of the junior culinary like cooking competition. They have a competition, and I was like so excited, you know, and just so like it was almost like I was so excited, and that was great, but that really was like I couldn't focus on that. I couldn't focus on the good part of it, the blessing, the, you know, opportunity. I remember being so anxious during that time, and all that consumed me was, what if this isn't right? What if, like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know about this. I would constantly literally be on my phone, man, like actually looking up stuff. Like, it got to the point where like I couldn't just let go of like fear. I literally couldn't let go of fear of the judgment, because I mean, well, quite literally, that's a competition, so there's gonna be judges. But this can just apply for, I think, any kind of thing. When we want to go for something, when we want to, like, our ambition, I think fear of vulnerability can really like kind of make us like freeze. Like, I felt just frozen during that time, kind of like I don't know what to do, and I actually quit. I literally quit the team. And then what came with that was I was angry at myself. I was really angry, and that's what it is with having those walls up. I wouldn't open up to the professor. She was so sweet, such a nice lady, and so caring. And I remember her saying, Markie, are you sure? Like, is this really like what you want, or is this your But again, I did not open up to her. I refused. I was one of, to me, the most stubborn people when it came to like actually opening up. I kind of just had hurt and been through so many things on my own and had to face so many things on my own my whole life due to kind of being around a family that, you didn't talk about things. Opening up was not a part of our life. We didn't communicate with each other. And it's like, so I think all of that, with the culinary competition was really a time in my life where I really did let my fear of vulnerability like stop me from something I wanted. And the thing is, I wanted that,
Yeah. That's the thing. And the truth is that like once we start to push aside that fear, we start to like see all of these doors opening for us. Like the moment that we say like that we decide, okay, I'm not going to be afraid anymore and we're just going to do this. Like once you get yourself to that point, everything just seems possible. Meanwhile, you're in that, it feels like there's no escape. It feels like you're in a room with just walls all around you and you can't get out. There's no key. There's nothing,
No.
But you have everything that you need within yourself. That's the thing. If you don't see a key lying around, then look inside. Look inside because you have everything that you need in there to open up that door, find an exit of that dark room that you're in.
I agree. And I think there's a lot of ways to work on our fear of vulnerability. And for me, one of them was, therapy helped me. Starting therapy really, like as like Ash said earlier on, it kind of like honestly, first of all, I didn't even know what it really meant either. I mean, I was so scared of something. Technically, I didn't even know what I was scared of. Like, I didn't, like, that's kind of like how it feels. Like, that helped so much, like, getting into therapy opened my mind. It opened my eyes to, what was really going on with me. Because I don't know how you felt. I would love to hear, like, your opinion on this. But it's kind of like when I started therapy and specifically was talking about, that situation with school, because that was something definitely that came up because that was a big thing. I mean, that's big, and it's kind of like realizing like, wait, like you had so much like shame and so much guilt and like so much anger towards yourself but something that you didn't even, like, I wasn't even aware. I actually kind of feel like I didn't really know, and therapy helped me. It gave me tools, to, like, learn to be more open, with myself, and that it's okay.
Yeah, it does. Do you have any tools that you think off the top of your head you could think of?
I do. Like, for me personally, in relation to therapy in particular, my therapist, Norma, by the way, I love her so much. She's so awesome. And I'm actually hoping to maybe have her on the show one day.
In the future.
Yeah, in the future. So stay tuned for her. Maybe.
Maybe.
Possibly. But I will say one of the biggest things, because I feel for me that my anxiety is what had me so fearful and that made me scared to open up. That made my mind so busy. It was like anxious, like worried and scared, but like boom, 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 like just going, like running on a wheel. Like that's kind of like how my brain felt about everything, let alone something major with like a lot of pressure. Like I didn't do well with pressure. And, so then I kind of would avoid things and I kind of would be scared to take on responsibilities because of that fear. And she taught me, about cognitive behavioral therapy. And, on day one, she said to me, listen, I'm happy you're here. You're doing this for you. Let's set some boundaries and be very clear that you are the one that's going to need to do the work. And I have tools that will help you, but I can only tell you about these things. But it's your job to like implement them into your life. And one of those was, for example, like responding to messages. When I first went to therapy, one of my hardest things with vulnerability was responding. Like there would be so many times where with certain people, in particular that I had a hard pass with, whatever, I found myself kind of like, avoiding it or whatever and being very anxious about it, kind of in the back of my mind. And Norma said, you know what? what you do is just respond. And then, I kind of sat there first like, okay, like, yeah, no, of course. Like, yeah, respond. That sounds great. But that's what it was all about. Cognitive behavioral therapy is like you're purposely doing like the opposite of what your current like mindset and brain is telling you to do, because that part of our brain that kind of like causes anxiety, I feel like, from what she has told me in my research and my experience, that we can rewire it. Like you mentioned earlier,
Absolutely.
we do have the power, and I feel that tool helped me not only for like that one small example of, responding to messages, but just with a lot of big things throughout my life. And I kind of have like, started to like push myself a little bit, and like, with love though, with grace, and just so that has helped me kind of, doing it. And you realize like even recently to this day, like there has been a few moments in my life where I kind of was, anxious about something. And then when after it happened, I was like, or I felt, a certain strong emotion, uncomfortable feeling about something that was happening. And in the past, before therapy and using the tool like cognitive behavioral therapy, I would have just like let it fester in me. God, like would I let it just start to like grow, let those feelings like set up camp, take over, and sabotage. But I didn't this time. And like, I really didn't. I just realized, you know what? Guess what, Markie? Nothing happened. Like, you weren't hurt. You weren't wounded. You were you were truly vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Everything's fine. Mm-hmm. And then and you feel better after you do it, after you face like these fears, these, whatever you're scared of, you kind of go, dang, like that wasn't so bad,
Mm-hmm. CBT is that's a great point to bring up. CBT was my biggest helper too. And just to be clear, like CBT doesn't mean you have to go to therapy. CBT can be doing your own work at home, going online and looking up, I always tell you that my biggest help when it came to my mental health and learning how to just learn healthier mechanisms for myself was just doing it all on my own, looking up videos and outlines and just little things. Like I would go and look for charts online that were just like how to love yourself, and there it would just kind of bring up little topics that I could write underneath, and I could just kind of like do my own work. Journaling is such a big part, I think, of CBT as well. Like if there was one thing that my therapist really like enforced so much every day was to journal and to write down exactly what you're thinking. Write down what your mind is telling you and what your heart is telling you, because I think it's good to separate those two things, because sometimes our mind will be, like you said, you mentioned anxiety. Sometimes I think our mind will be so anxious that it will take the driver's seat, and it'll take you wherever it needs to take you. And you're just you have to get your ass in the front seat in the passenger seat, and you need to grab the wheel, and you need to like throw anxiety out of the front seat.
Yeah, it's
and
hijacking.
It's hijacking. You need to take over for yourself and write this down. Like make it as clear for yourself as you can, because the truth is that we can give ourselves our own answers, like the answers that we need. We can give that to ourselves. We just have to bring that thought when things come up. So if you're in the situation, try to remember, like, wait, like you said, you're talking to Markie, you got to bring the attention back to yourself and say, what am I doing right now and why am I doing it? One thing that I learned in CBT was about my inner child and what that is and what that means. And I'm going to just bring up something that is extremely vulnerable for me, but you know what? That's what this episode is about. And I think that even if it's uncomfortable, it's important. But it is around my mom, and just I lost my mom. She died last year in November, so it hasn't been a year yet. But I went through quite a journey I went through quite a journey with vulnerability when it relates to my mom, because when she passed away, I felt like it was my foundation kind of cracking from beneath my feet. I felt like it was just the ground underneath me just kind of collapsed, and I felt like I was just floating, and I was just grabbing onto branches and grabbing onto like things, just trying to like keep myself up. That's what it felt like to me when she passed, because she had always been the one that I went to for anything. If I was ever struggling, if I ever needed any sort of support, I would go to her. So to me, it very much felt like it was what held me together. And after she passed away, I'm not always like super close with my family, because our family is just kind of like, we do our own thing, we're kind of like in our own world. Recently I moved away from my sister that I lived with for a couple of years after I went through a pretty bad breakup with my partner. So I had been living with her for a while, so I had that support for years. And out of nowhere, it had only been, I don't even think it had been a year. No, definitely not. It had only been a couple of months after I moved in with some roommates. And it was with Markie. And it was kind of my first time just like on my own and without my family directly around me. I felt super like I had support from Markie because she was my friend, but we were still kind of in the beginning stages of the friendship, so it was still kind of like we're still building this. It didn't feel quite like how it was with my sister, because it's new, it's different. I technically did feel like I was by myself at that time. And one of the biggest things that I had to face was being open and vulnerable to the people directly around me, like Markie and Blake and some other friends that I have that were directly around me. It was really hard because it didn't feel safe. Everything just felt like so far away. Everyone just felt like strangers. Everyone just kind of felt like unfamiliar. But that was only because I was thinking of my mom and of how familiar I felt with her. So the difference was pretty big, and it was really hard for me to just accept as like my support system. I didn't even think that here's just the thing. I didn't even think that they were a support system or that they could be a support system, because I was just hurt, and it wasn't any one of their fault. It was nobody's fault that I felt this way. It's just my inner child was wounded. It felt alone. I felt like I didn't have anything there anymore. When I started hearing things like friends telling me that they would be there if I needed anything, or just friends helping me with things around my mom's memorial and around everything during that time. I had Markie came out and Blake, and they helped with setting up for her memorial. Like, they literally came to my mom's house and did so many things, like literally cut thorns off of roses and set up tables and drove us around here and there. And I mean, so many things. And at that time, it was like so scary to me. The idea that, there were other people besides my mom that wanted to be there and wanted to help. And I had like I was like, like in fetal position, like don't get near. But it wasn't until I was able to just truly let down the walls and tell myself, this is just that little kid in me, that inner child that has been wounded before and is feeling pain right now, tragedy. Again, tragedy comes into the picture, and that fear again of just being hurt. Like, my mom just disappeared. She's gone now, and these people, it could happen with them too. We can get close, and I can find support in them, and yeah, we could love each other, but then they can leave at any point. At any point, they can just exit my life, just like my mom did. And it's just that direct fear of loss. it's that inner child wound of abandonment,
Yeah.
you know, and that can happen with so many things, not only with friends, but it can happen in, you know, romantic relationships. You could be afraid to get hurt again. You could be afraid that this is going to happen again, you know, but it's that very fear that stops us from moving forward and having that support and possibly finding something beautiful. And like I did, you know, I had all these people around me that just were there, and you know, I just had to tell myself, kind of like imagine and picture, visualize older Ash, me, who sits here today, and I'm talking to little Ash, this little girl that has been so afraid to lose people in my life. And I could tell her, hey, this is a new morning. This is a new morning. This is a new start. You can get up from here and try again. Like, just because this has happened to you in the past doesn't mean that you have to be afraid that it's going to happen to you again. Like, otherwise, we're always going to keep pushing away the things that are coming to us. So I really think that this year has been quite a lesson in that. I have people around me now that I've let in. And even though it's a process and a journey of continuing to let them in, it's going. It's going, and I'm working towards it every single day. And every time that little thought comes up in my head to be afraid that this is in danger of not being yours anymore, I can bring myself back and say, you know what, I can take control of this situation and be strong in myself. Look inside of yourself and connect with yourself so that you know that all you need is you. And then the people that are around you, that's even better. Like, that's extra. That's wonderful. But, you know, you have the strength inside of yourself. And I think that's really what it is. Like, when we can recognize that we can be alone and you know, move ourselves forward alone, people just start coming in. People just start to somehow come up in your life, and you know, it's okay. It's okay to.
I'm happy you did. Let me tell you that. We've been really happy, you know, just to have you with us, and we've had so many good talks, and it's kind of like what's led us to do this podcast. And
Yeah.
I'm just so happy that we're both willing to be vulnerable with it, you know, to help ourselves and others, because I mean, that's just such a, you know, I lost my mom, I mean, too. And it's just, I think exactly what you said. When you lose someone, you know, grief really does trigger such a, like, fear in you. It kind of, like you said, it makes you, like, weary of getting close to people, letting people in when they do care. So I'm just so happy that you did. And
Yeah.
I know it takes work every day. And I mean, I think it's something we're gonna, you know, just work on a situation by situation basis.
It is very much that way. I think just mental health is that way. I think that it's something that we're gonna always just be working towards, and you know, have that self-dialogue with yourself. You know, talk to yourself. Remember that you can talk to yourself. You don't always necessarily need to tell anyone but you.
Yeah, because I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, it makes me kind of think about how, you know, the whole bigger picture of vulnerability is, like you mentioned earlier, we need to be vulnerable with ourselves, vulnerable enough to be real and, you know, look deeper into, wait, why am I feeling this way? First of all, what am I feeling? You know, is it stopping me? Is it making me unhappy, unfulfilled in any, like, avenue of my life, in any area? And, you know, just realizing, like you said, taking our power back and, you know, knowing when and who. You kind of learn when and who to be vulnerable with.
Exactly. You do. And you'll know. You'll definitely know. And, you know, I'm sure while we've been talking about all of this, like, there's a fear of, well, what if, like, I open up to the wrong person? And I just do feel like we have to listen to ourselves and to our intuition. We have to just listen to, you know, what our gut tells us about people. And you know what, if you do, you know, get to know somebody and they end up just being the bane of your existence, like, it was probably for a reason. You know, I've met people like that. I've met people that I've you know, gone on a journey with them, and it hasn't always turned out so well. You know, things have happened, and But you know what? I've always come out stronger. I've always come out stronger from those situations. So ultimately, it was very important that I was vulnerable with the person, you know. So don't be afraid. I think that the biggest thing here is don't be afraid. Try to look fear in the eyes and just be like, you know what? I'm going to do this and I'm going to move forward and have confidence in that. Actually, a big point that I did want to make is having confidence when we're being vulnerable. Have confidence in your vulnerability, because I think it is really important for us to go about it in a strong way rather than in a fearful way. So I don't know, let's say you have an opportunity for something like in your career, and you want to go, like, you want to tell your manager something that you want to like progress in your career. Go in with strong vulnerability, because it takes vulnerability to go up and say, hey, I want to grow in this industry or whatever. I want to do something bigger. It takes a lot because we're afraid of rejection. We're afraid that we're going to be rejected by someone. Go in knowing that and accepting that, but being strong in that and approaching it in a way where you're ready for anything, you know, be confident, because the truth is that we can handle it. We can handle it. We can. That's how we get ahead.
Yep. And take it exactly from me. The feeling of kind of feeling regretful, you know, from not taking the shot, I'm telling you, is way worse than just missing it. But hey, you tried, you know, and it does take vulnerability, and it does take kind of like saying, like, I don't know, just for me, like, just being aware of, you know what, there's two things that are going to happen in this situation. A, it's going to work. B, it isn't. And I used to have every other thought, these crazy all in between like scenarios. And it's kind of like you have to like, you know, relax, kind of just like, okay, this is really what's going to happen, this or that. And that's it. Yeah. And, you know, but like you said, be confident in yourself, you know, getting confidence in yourself and your decisions and what you want and what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the last thing that I personally would like to talk about is just shame around vulnerability and us just being ashamed of being vulnerable. Like, we're all so afraid of just showing our emotions and showing just the way that we're feeling, or telling somebody how we're feeling. You know, it's happened so much where, you know, people don't want to open up about what's really going on, and, you know, they hold it in for so long that it just builds up and it builds up to the point where, you know, people explode. That's how people end up, you know, ending their lives or just doing things that were not necessary, you know, because what if we could have, you know, opened up to somebody about it and let them in and gone somewhere with that, you know. I think that it's something that it's a stigma that really does like circle around vulnerability quite a bit. That shame, just that shame of like, we talked about this already, like being weak, you know. We don't have to feel weak because we're vulnerable or because, you know, we feel a lot. Markie and I are you know, probably the most emotional people that I know. You know, anywhere we go, everyone knows if we're upset. Like, if something's going on, some people know it. Before, I would have not been that way. I would have been too ashamed. I would have thought that people are going to judge me or they're going to be annoyed by me. That was the biggest thing, I would say. The biggest thing for me was just like that people were going to be annoyed by me. That people were just going to be like, oh my God, like, she's just so emotional. She's so emo, or she's just so like.
Too much. You hear too much a lot.
Yeah, like she's too much. She's so dramatic.
Too sensitive.
Yeah, so sensitive, you know, but sensitivity, I think, is power at the end of the day.
It is, you know, and that is such a good point with, you know, even I'll say something right now about myself, at least personally, on this topic of shame around, you know, fear of vulnerability. I'm 33, and I feel like I've had a lot of years of not wanting to be close to people, being a loner. In school, I was a loner, and I loved being a loner, and I didn't need people. I didn't want people getting close to me. I loved it to be very surface. I wanted to have fun with people. I wanted to joke with people, and like that's kind of it. You know, when you try to like people try to peel back layers a little bit more, and I would just no, you know, like I don't think so. But I've recently, especially with you, like since you moving in even, and just like that, it's kind of like it forces you, like now, like you're going to be vulnerable, like, you're letting someone who works with you live with you. And it's like it's just been a huge journey of realizing like, wow, like you've kind of shown me like someone can be like a safe person. There are people out there that are safe people. That's what this podcast is. That is what this whole first episode was supposed to like embody, just like what we want. And I just love you, appreciate you for helping me kind of like see that like very lesson, because I struggle with it to this day with people I care about, and I know people I care about also struggle with it. And sometimes, like, I think you and we resonated a lot on that, almost like on our own experiences with fear of vulnerability, because it's like, wait, like it does kind of like in togetherness when you do communicate, even just a simple thing of being like, I've told people recently, my friends, like, I'm sorry when I'm upset. Like, I need some time to myself. I need, whatever. That's not people who love you and people that care about you, the right people. You'll never be too much. You'll never be too sensitive. You'll never be too moody, but I've learned to communicate. If that alone is vulnerable, it's not always like, you don't have to pour out your whole, you and I mean, oh my gosh, we have our cry fest every dang day. So that's a whole other story. We're just very open, and I love that. But even with just like you've told me, smiling at someone, or even, whatever, communicating, to me, being able to communicate, get your feelings across in a way to where people know, because I did have fear of communicating, like with people, even especially people who are close to me.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Communication. Just, wow. Yeah, because when we can, like, let people know where we're at and what we need, that automatically, eliminates this fear of, what are they gonna leave me? Are they gonna, we can clear things up. We can talk about things. We can talk. You and I think the biggest key when it comes to vulnerability in our friendship is the fact that you and I can always communicate. We can always tell each other what is going on. And that's a part of vulnerability, just like, because it's uncomfortable. I'll be real.
It is.
It's uncomfortable.
It's hard.
Like, whenever I'm cranky or something, it's hard for me to say, hey, like, I'm just feeling this way. I'm just like in this mood or whatever. It can be, I can have, like, the fear will come up in me that you're not going to understand, or and that will happen every time, no matter how close we are or whatever. That's going to happen every time, where I'm going to have that fear of, oh my God, like, she's going to think that I'm just being
this or that.
Yeah, but, when we do that, every single time it's received so well. It's received so well to where you're just like, hey, I get it, man. Like, you're good. Take your time. Just take care of yourself. And, it broke that fear. Like, we were able to just break that fear, and just kind of, it gives me even more space to be where I need to be, and get through it, the emotions that I need to get through faster, because now I know that I have support, and now I know that it's going to be okay. And there's people that aren't going to understand me. Like, I'm not totally alone. I'm not just this like little kid in a fetal position. Like, I'm okay, and I'm more than okay, because I have people there to support me. So,
yep, I agree.
This is just generally not only for vulnerability, but for just any place where you feel like you might need help with or support in, whether that's being more vulnerable, or being more confident, or being more creative, anything, loving yourself more. Any of these things One of my biggest tools that I use, that I always bring out of my toolbox, that I'm feeling like I need help or support or grounding in these areas, is affirmations. I like to just play some affirmations on my phone. You can make your own affirmations. You can just write them down, whatever it is that you like. I love myself. I have everything that I need to succeed. All of these types of things. We can link a couple in the bio as well.
Exactly.
Or you could just look up on your own.
Yeah.
As well.
There's a lot out there. There's so many good tools on that. Out there for sure.
It really helps. Like subconsciously, it's not only are you saying it out loud or in your mind, but subconsciously, it's reprogramming some things in there. Words hold a lot of power. So, affirmations, I think, are a big one.
For sure. And, I do want to just kind of thank everyone so much that has helped so far with just making the podcast possible. I really thank all of you guys so much for listening to us. And our main goal is that we make you guys feel seen. We make someone feel seen, someone feel heard, and make everyone feel loved, and just supported. And we really are here for each of you. And we're going to share our email, and we would love it if you guys could just email us with anything, even if it's, hey, I loved it, but I kind of like, any feedback is open, because, we want to do what's going to be best, for everyone. What everyone, basically this is for everyone listening, it is for us too, but we really want to serve the people we love and just everyone in a way, so they have a support system. So thank you so much for listening, everyone.
We are vulnerable to your feedback.
Yes, we have no fear of vulnerability to hear it. Just tell us we suck, okay?
Eat fries on the McFlurry. And we could edit that, right?
Yay.
Eat fries on the McFlurry.
Yay.
And we could edit that, right? Welcome to Mindful Thoughts. And we could edit that, right? Eat fries on the McFlurry. And we could edit that, right?